Does anyone miss the days where there were dozens of Spider-Man open world games, sitting between mediocre and shit in quality and scale? I fucking don't. Fortunately, that's changed with the recent launch of Insomniac Games' Marvel's Spider-Man, a PS4 exclusive. I'm sorry Xbox peasants, which I say knowing full well just how powerful this pointless box of hitting the dilemma of I don't know what to play and Halo 5 Guardians was like a 7-foot tin man kicking me in the bollocks. This game's right up there with Sony's other gobsmacking exclusives, such as God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, Detroit Become Human, Uncharted, and listing all the like will take me longer than it did to record footage for this review. My point here is that Marvel's Spider-Man delivers. It's a fun Spider-Man experience, not unlike things we've received in the past, but instead of being shit, the game is fantastic. In this video, we're going to be going over why I really think that this is another PlayStation 4 must-buy game. I'll try to keep my commentary spoiler-free, but the footage shown will show various points of the main story and side content because that's just what's going on, so consider that in mind as a spoiler warning. But only to a mild degree, it's only a precaution for minor spoilers. Now the story for this game is definitely one of the many things that I really liked about it. I don't want to spoil too much, but I'll give you a brief outline of what we knew going in. The game follows a more mature Spider-Man, so instead of playing as a teenage Peter Parker, in this game he's roughly 23 years old, meaning he's a seasoned superhero. No need for some cliche origin story or coming of age gimmick that we tend to see when media typically tries to depict a Spider-Man story, and let's just say that the game delivers on making Spider-Man's more seasoned years seem worth exploring. And to be honest, I really enjoyed how this affected the game. You feel like a pro because that's the stage of Spider-Man's life that you've jumped into, and that's exactly what was delivered. Also, the whole older Peter Parker malarkey provided a more dire situation not just for Spider-Man but for his alter ego too, barely scraping by socially and financially, and how being a superhero has taken a toll on him. Moving on, the stakes of the story are pretty tense and it kept me hooked to play through the game within a day. I did plenty of side stuff, don't get me wrong, but I just kept going back to the story to see what happens next, and the game didn't disappoint. I do admit, in a lot of games I tend to feel the fatigue of combining the story with lengthy sittings because they tend to get same old, but this game doesn't have that issue. Story missions are as unique as they need to be, all providing more context and intrigue to what's going on and proving both relevance to the overall story and showing us how a professional Spider-Man is adaptable because of his experience. No two main story missions are the same. Side content is a different kettle of fish, but we'll get to that later. The story characters are fun, likeable, and if they're intended to be disliked, then that's what they are. The most important character here has to be Peter Parker since he is Spider-Man. Of course, he takes centre stage. Now, I'm no comic guy, but this feels as if this is how Spider-Man is supposed to be. As Spider-Man, he's humorous and packed with one-liners and all those things that give him that light-hearted flair, whereas Peter Parker is a slightly more reserved individual who still has plenty of personality, as well as matching traits with his alter ego, but at the same time, the contrast between the two is made pretty clear. As for other characters, they're good enough. Some are a bit wishy-washy, such as Silver Fuck Off, we've seen you show up like 60 times and know your Russian accent doesn't mean you don't need a personality. But for the most part, I can't raise many complaints with the core cast. As a bonus, there are moments in which the game demonstrates a mild self-awareness. For example, when walking at street level, Spider-Man may say something along the lines of "don't ask me to do the hand thingy," obviously referencing his signature use of his two middle fingers to activate his web shooters. I honestly never used to understand why Spider-Man did that. I thought it was just to look cool or whatever, but nah, he actually has a purpose for it. Beyond this, the story references previous takes of Spider-Man, such as Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, in which Peter stops a tram with webs stating that it worked last time when it fails in the game. And there are other cool references in there, which I'm sure once you start playing you'll start to notice. Overall, the story was done to a high quality, showing us both Peter Parker and Spider-Man's struggles in this stage in their respective egos' lives. To find out more, I guess you're just going to have to play the game, or look it up elsewhere, that works too. The game plays, in combat especially, quite similar to how the Arkham games do. Besides from being tailored to Spider-Man as opposed to Batman, of course, the differences there are obvious. Except unlike the Arkham games, which I believe hold the record for how quickly it makes players like the game before making them bored to death with repetitive gameplay and Kevin Conroy's monotone, just kind of a Batman trait to be honest, but who cares. Marvel's Spider-Man doesn't have this problem. The game plays just as smoothly, if not smoother than the Arkham games, but provides infinitely more opportunities to engage the player with fresh gameplay in every main mission, as well as plenty of nice fun upgrades that feel noticeable and effective, as well as plenty of challenge. The game isn't exactly piss easy, and it's not stupidly tough either. It's a well balanced experience, and I like that. For the record, I play the game on amazing difficulty, which is the game's equivalent to normal. In combat, like I said, the game plays pretty much how an Arkham game does, except tailor-made for Spider-Man instead. And that's a good core system to adopt for a game as fast paced as this one. The fights can be challenging in this though, and the upgrades are incredibly helpful in helping tackle these challenges. Ultimately, the system is very good and translates well to nice aesthetics at the same time. I really enjoyed the combat. Granted, it can take the piss a little bit sometimes by throwing waves of foes at you, or having you fight two fat bastards at once, or bosses, and sometimes it can drag out more than you'd like and it gets tedious. But for the most part, it's satisfying, fast paced and fun, and ultimately a very good system, but the minor flaws still stand. The stealth in this game isn't something that you'd expect to rely on heavily for the most part, but when it's there, it's quite clear with how you can approach something stealthily. In set pieces while playing as characters other than Spider-Man, it can feel a little helpless, but ultimately that challenge is more or less basic. As Spider-Man's stealth is much more open, allowing you to move around, use laws and all kinds of snazzy shit to take care of your adversaries before they see you, and it can actually get quite fun. And considering my aforementioned statements of critique against the tedious feel that the combat can provide from time to time, as well as the challenges of going head on with large groups of enemies, covering various varieties of foes, some of which require certain techniques to take down, you may find the stealth to be the wiser option, as this was my case. For the bottom line on the stealth, it's not something I'd rely on too heavily, but it is a good system. As for boss fights and lovely things of that variety, if that's what I should call them, in this game, they are how they should be. Very fast paced, structures and handled like set pieces. Each main boss fight is unique, some are even a little insane going in, some are more challenging than others, and each require the player to think and find techniques that work as opposed to aimlessly mashing buttons, calling a controller a dickhead and throwing it out the window. What? Gaming gets steamy. For the boss fights in the main story, I can't really show you those without actually spoiling certain parts of the game, so I'm not going to. But it's suffice to say the rage-based solution does not work, kids. I'm a bit of a button masher myself, I'll admit, but this game has me reserve my hand fucking of the controller enough to actually progress in the story because tactics are required. Now for the thing you really want to know about, the web slinging. Web slinging is a fantastic, unique thing that makes Spider-Man Spider-Man, and without it the game wouldn't even be half as good as it is. It plays a huge role in how the game plays on almost every level, and let's just say that the quality of it is incredible. You can do cool tricks while swinging around for hours, and it's so satisfying that time just flies. Hell, I forgot to sleep while I was having so much fun. Granted, I was doing other things, like wanking. But this really was the highlighter of my experience. A satisfying web slinging system that plays well, feels nice, and for the most part has aesthetic variety. And I'll say for the most part when I'm talking about this, because sometimes the web slinging will just stop working. This is quite rare, but it's happened to me 3 or 4 times, in which you'll have plenty of shit that are eligible to hold the web, but for some reason the game won't compute that and you'll just fall and it'll recover after you leave the button for a second or so. That might just be a little snag that I've bumped into a couple times, but let me know if any of you have had that one yet, because it happens to me in the least convenient of times. There are a total of 27 suits according to the suit menu. All of them have a unique power that you can apply to whichever suit you like after unlocking the respective suit. Some suits do look better than others, and I did spend more or less the entire game just enjoying the base suit, to be honest. But that's not to say the suits are bad. Most suits are crafted with the same materials you use to craft suit mods and upgrades to gadgets, which means that if you want one of the fancy suits, then you can just swing around the city and play Good Samaritan for about 20 minutes or so and it'll be yours. A few other suits require the completion of certain objectives or missions in the game, and obtaining them can be equally as rewarding. The suits have plenty of variety, so don't worry about getting bored because one look looks like the other ones. As for upgrades, you have your skills that you unlock with skill points, which is kind of basic level up based upgrading stuff, and that's all it needs to be. You can also craft gadgets and upgrade them to various degrees, as well as craft suit mods and apply those to your suits. Also, each suit comes with its own special ability which you can apply to any suit you like once you unlocked it. In my mind there's plenty there, and the grind to craft or level up is nowhere near as tedious as it can be in some games. The open world feels alive, especially at ground level. You have people actually notice when you decide to land. In previous Spider-Man games of its kind, NPCs would just ignore you because they weren't scripted to acknowledge you as a part of the world. In this game, NPCs will take note of you, cheering you on as a fan, which may lead to certain potential engagements such as giving high fives and other interactions, or threatening and antagonising you as they believe you're a villain, special thanks to the frequent radio talks by J. Jonah Jameson, in which he constantly highlights what he sees as negatives in Spider-Man's acts. This provides a good contrast to the street level of the game. It's detailed, filled with people who react to you in different ways. Some will take pictures, others chat shit, some engage you, and others simply just don't give a fuck and will pay no attention. On top of this, the atmosphere is made incredible thanks to the beautiful graphics and the lovely music to boot.
Excuse me, are you Dr. Delaney?
My nemesis. You won't catch me this time.
Oh no, smoke. Whatever will I do?
Side content is a huge thing in open world games. If the open world itself isn't interesting, the game might as well be linear. Well, there's lots to do in this open world. Plenty of collectibles which aren't used as a substitute for actual content, as well as plenty of crimes piping up in the streets for us to scan and stop as they happen. As well as fixing towers to reveal an area on the map, chasing pigeons, yeah, that's actually a thing, and the gang bases, just to name a few. There are also more layered side missions that have their own thing going on too, and ultimately they're a good way to get some experience if you're a bit short of a level up and need a skill point to unlock a skill before you prance into the next main story mission. Now, a lot of the side content isn't as engaging as say a high-end RPGs would be, but considering how this game really is just trying to captivate Spider-Man with awesome gameplay and a great story, and the fact that you'll be spending most of your time flying over the city at whatever speed Peter can web sling at anyway, it's not a massive miss. But just because every piece of side content isn't done to a high quality doesn't mean that there aren't high quality pieces of side content in the game. In fact, if they'd done more, I think they would have run the risk of overdoing it a little. So everything here is quite logical. In fact, I kind of like the simplicity of some things. On the subject of graphics, before you ask, no, I can't tell if it was downgraded or not. I mean, it probably was a little for performance reasons because the E3 demo is never going to accurately reflect a game's look on launch, but ultimately it's irrelevant. The sun may actually be a cheeky texture thief, but it didn't steal enough to make me cry. The game still looks gorgeous. The graphics are great, rendering is solid, textures are still high quality, and it's all complete with lovely lighting, complete with lens flares and all that lovely shit that adds volume to 3D worlds to really make the graphics feel three-dimensional and alive, if you get me. Besides from giving this the Fizhy seal of approval, I have no idea what else to say on the topic of graphics. When it comes to performance, please bear in mind that I played the game on a PS4 Pro. Anyways, the game runs pretty smoothly. I didn't notice any frame drops. On the front of bugs and glitches, I didn't notice very many at all. The occasional webbing of a foe in mid-air to find him vanish and pin to a wall 50 feet away happened for sure, but then there's the whole web slinging not firing business happening 3 or 4 times, but beyond that there are no outstanding incidents where glitches got in my face. They weren't really noticeable at all, if they were there, though I can't say I was actively looking for them. So as far as I can see, there's no real game breakers in there, so if you want an optimization statement, I give this game a pretty fat thumbs up. So overall, let's just say that this game exceeded my expectations. The game's super fun. It has great and satisfying gameplay, a great story filled with interesting plot points and a variety of gameplay opportunities. The open world is not empty and has plenty worth doing. The skills and upgrades are done how they need to be done, and there are plenty of different suits to unlock to give a go if you ever get bored of looking one way or another. Ultimately, I reckon I'd give this game a solid 9.5 out of 10. That 0.5 missing being cut out for all the minor nitpicks. If you don't have a PlayStation 4 by this point, you're missing out on so many must-play exclusives, this included. But anyways, that's my review for Marvel's Spider-Man. A game that further proves the point that Sony is completely thwumping Microsoft at the moment. What the fuck is that word? That's a new one. Thwumping. When you wump that thwump. But anyways, I'm not going to drag out that argument because, come on, I think everybody's already heard that one a million times. But anyways, thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. What do you think about the game? Do you agree with the review? Do you disagree? Let me know why. Also, be sure to go ahead and drop me a follow on Twitter. I would really appreciate that. And I will see you all very soon with another video at some point.